Welcome to Stroke Forward. My name is Marcia Moran. For the next 40 minutes or so, we are going to talk about things that stroke survivors, or any brain injury survivor, deals with. If you look at me today, you probably don't see a person who had a stroke, but I feel it. My body functions differently. Do I think I will get back to 100%? Yes, because to think differently is to admit defeat. We will talk to all sorts of people who have been there, from survivors to caretakers to doctors, nurses, therapists, friends, and family who have seen us at our weakest. They have cheered us with their victories, no matter how large or how small. How did we get here? That's what this show is going to tell you. Yalani Camara is a heart attack and two-time stroke survivor. 2.5 years ago, he had a heart attack and stroke. About 8 months ago, he had a second stroke. Yalani is fortunate in that he is physically okay. He recovered from the weakness in his right side and has been dealing with aphasia. The challenge is that while Yalani looks okay from the outside, he is dealing with the unseen effects of aphasia in his head. Yalani is working every day to improve. Yalani and John Foster have been friends for more than 10 years. He has been living with John and his wife for the last 4 months. It has given John a first-hand experience to help him understand aphasia. John has been involved in nutrition education for the last 6 years as an ambassador for Green Fair Organic Cafe in Herndon, Virginia, and its importance in people's lives, and now with stroke survivors. Controlling blood pressure, cholesterol, and building your immune system are critical, and the foundation for this is nutrition, along with proper sleep, exercise, stress management, and hydration. They have been able to reduce Yalani's blood pressure and now working to minimize the number of medications he is taking. I am delighted to introduce Yalani Camara and John Foster today. How are you doing on this warm January day?
Doing well, Marcia, and it is an unusual January day for sure.
Yeah. So, Yalani, you've had a couple of strokes. Where were you when the first stroke happened?
I was going to work.
Okay.
That time
So,
I was working.
okay. So was it on the left or the right side?
The right side of my brain.
Okay.
But
Okay.
it is going on the here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And what deficits did you get from your first stroke?
Deficit is when whenever I get a stroke, um, the thing is I you do you want to help me?
So on his first stroke, Marcia, he had a heart issue.
Okay.
So
Yes.
the heart issue, I think it was tied to the stroke.
Okay.
He didn't have any blockages, but something happens to cause the first stroke,
Okay.
and it was tied to his heart the first time.
Okay. And you said he was on his way to work?
Yeah, the first time I'm going to work, yes.
Okay. So were you in the car?
No,
Okay.
it's about 2 blocks away from me.
Okay. Okay. Um, that sounds pretty horrible, actually.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So did somebody find you, or how did you get to the hospital or anything?
Well, the when I my somebody was working at the gas station.
Mm-hmm.
They asked them to let them come and see me at work because I cannot go to work.
Obviously, yeah.
Yes, that's why
Yeah.
I he come to me. He was ready to make me go to the hospital.
Okay.
Yeah,
And so how long between the first stroke and the second stroke was there?
it takes 2 years to
Two
take
years.
me. Yeah,
Okay.
and
And go
the
ahead.
the 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 you said that it was um, 9 months ago.
Yeah, about 9 months ago.
Yes,
Okay. And how were the deficits different during the second stroke?
the difference is I don't have any recollection on my brain. I my my thinking was what is happening to me,
Mm-hmm.
and but at the same time I don't have, have I don't have I I don't have nothing to tell me because it was my thinking, you, you know.
So on his first stroke, Marcia, he had the heart issue and he also had some weakness in his right side.
Right.
The second stroke, he didn't have the physical part of it, but it was the mental part, the aphasia that got caught stroke caused. I don't know if it aggravated it or changed it. But he didn't have. I'll say if there's good, if there's such thing as a good thing, is that he doesn't have. His physical limitations are okay. Are okay.
Right. Right. But not being able to speak the
Oh,
way you want to
it's
is devastating.
Complete.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I remember how frustrated I feel
Yeah.
when I couldn't talk. According to the National Aphasia Association, 40% of people in the United States understand that aphasia is a language disorder. It means that a person with aphasia has trouble either speaking, reading, writing, comprehending, or a mixture of those four. The good news is that only 7 to 8% of our population could identify what the word aphasia actually meant in 2020. When you speak with someone who has aphasia, please remember to give them the time and space to say what is on their mind. Having aphasia does not affect someone's intelligence. Think about what it is like for them to have something to say and perhaps not being able to get the point across. It is devastating. So, how did your caretakers deal with the strokes and the aftermath?
I don't know.
Okay.
You
Okay.
you tell me what you think. Really?
So, Marcia, the first time he had a stroke, he went to rehab and had several people that were taking care of him up to a point.
Right.
But then he was on his own for a while. And then I didn't realize he had had a second stroke. And that really wasn't until September, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And so then it's after we had met a couple times and, met for coffee, and I knew he had aphasia, but didn't understand the depth and the severity, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And so then in October, he came to live with me and my wife.
Right.
And so it's been a huge, learning for me to understand. And I think that's one of the things that, that is challenging for Yalani, because if you look at him,
Mm-hmm.
everything's okay. Unlike people who have a stroke who've lost, lost function on a left or right side. And so people know there's something wrong, but with Yalani, nobody really knew, particularly on the second stroke. And so that, it's been an education for me to learn to help, partially understand that frustration and, how to deal with life.
Right. So what's been the most profound thing that you've learned from this experience, Yalani?
But, it's always a wake to know what I'm going to have happen. It's my way of doing things is, to me personally, how to make that much needed for me to wear about myself.
Mm-hmm.
It's not possible for me to have everything on my mind, how to answer the question I have.
Mm-hmm.
It's not easy.
Mm-hmm.
You understand?
I do. Yeah. And people who haven't had aphasia, there's no way to understand that.
No, really, because for me, to myself, they cannot walk with me right away, because anyone have their thinking, their but myself, I am here, but can you help me? Because you yes.
I think, Marcia, that, as far as the learning from this experience is just living day to day,
Mm-hmm.
and not and I've and we've talked about this, that the the ups and downs, the ebbs and flows of this. Sometimes you'll remember and not remember. And there will be times when you remember, not remember. And so that, I think it's maybe the appreciation of life.
Exactly.
And just trying to, just dealing with things, just the very common things. And, the very common things, we take for granted our speech.
Definitely.
And that to me is, I mean, in having Yalani live with me every day, is it certainly makes me grateful for my speech, but also an appreciation for his challenge.
Yeah. Yeah. What would you want everyone who listens to this podcast know about aphasia?
You want you want to explain to me, please? You understand?
Yeah. So I know what aphasia is because I had it. It's the inability to talk, write, read, or comprehend language.
Yes.
And when I got upset or I was tired or anything like that, I would just totally shut down.
Yes. Completely.
Completely, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that 8% of the American population has heard of the word aphasia.
Hmm.
That's appalling, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's my mission to make sure that far more people are aware and understand, because the people.
I hope that people listen to you, really.
Yep.
Really.
Yep. So we've chatted about aphasia. Let's talk about some of the things that are interesting in what you are doing now, John. I know you've noticed that you've got fruit and vegetables behind
Yes,
you.
indeed.
What's going on with that?
Well, Marcia, it's actually a tablecloth behind me. But and I use this on most calls and things as a reminder to people to eat fruits and vegetables.
Mm-hmm.
And my I'll say journey, if you will, and this certainly includes Yalani, is back 6 years ago. I met the owner of a restaurant, and in talking to her, we decided that she had a 21-day program through the restaurant. At the time, I was 56 and had struggled with, like a lot of people, struggle with my weight. It kind of fluctuated up and down through the decades. I had kind of resigned myself that everybody gets older and puts on more weight, has a few aches and pains, that sort of thing. And so I decided to do this 21-day program, and I did the 21-day program, and it literally in 21 days had a huge impact on my life. And so for 21 days, basically, I had 42 meals provided by the restaurant every lunch and dinner. The restaurant is truly unique. It's the only restaurant in the country that I believe is 100% organic, and they don't use any salt, oil, or sugar when they cook.
So no oil, no salt, no sugar?
No sugar, right.
So did you have withdrawals?
So interestingly, I did. about day 8 of the 21-day program, I had maybe 2 days of feeling like I had the flu.
Okay.
And I got progressively better. At the end of 21 days, I felt better than I had in a long time.
Wow.
And as a result of that, it's now 6 years later, and I work with the restaurant. I'm an ambassador for the restaurant, and the restaurant continues to do the 21-day program. And the
So
results.
Go ahead.
Uh,
So what's the name of the restaurant?
So it's Green Fair. It's Green Fair Restaurant, Green Fair Organic Cafe in Herndon, Virginia. It's the only one in the country. And, after the 21 days, I mean, I had dropped 13 pounds. I was able to get off of, I wasn't diabetic, or I wasn't even really pre-diabetic, but my blood pressure was borderline. My blood pressure is now normal. I was taking Nexium for acid reflux, and I haven't taken that in 6 years. And so it literally changed my life. And I've dropped 50 pounds and I've kept it off for the last 6 years.
Wow, that is amazing.
And
so, go ahead.
I was going to say, and the other thing we see in that 21 days, an average of a 20% drop in cholesterol, definitely a drop in blood pressure. People will lose weight. And I don't really look at it as it's not the weight that's important, but it's your health.
Right.
And if you eat right, your weight will normalize.
Right.
And so as a result of this, and this goes back to, my experience with Yalani living here is, I mean, we eat really well. I don't cook with any salt, oil, or sugar. And we've been able to keep him. The doctors are not prescribing any more blood pressure medicine. His blood pressure is now where it should be. In fact, we literally just had the debate with the doctor today about his blood pressure being too low.
Really?
Yes. And so there's a fine line between the medication he has to take for his heart and the blood pressure medicine. So we have a follow-up meeting with his primary care doctor, but we were able to not increase any dosages. In fact, we got him off one medication.
That's really important.
Yes. And so, I know, and I'm really grateful, Marcia, because, it didn't really even dawn on me with regards to blood pressure, the importance of blood pressure and stroke.
Mm-hmm.
And that it has to be managed, or else you're going to, you're at a much higher risk for another stroke. Yep. And to me, this message is really critically important for anybody because, from a blood pressure standpoint and cholesterol standpoint, the sad part of it is in a majority of cases, it can be controlled.
Yep.
And so I know, strokes happen to people who are, in seemingly perfect health.
Yeah.
But are there things that we could do to minimize the chance of that?
So they say 80% of strokes could be avoided.
And the same, and I mean, type 2 diabetes, I mean, can be avoided for almost 100%.
Yep.
Type 1 diabetes, why you can't, that's a mechanical issue with regards to insulin. By proper diet, you can reduce the amount of insulin needed.
Yep.
And so, this message, and that's why I really do appreciate the much, better understanding of strokes and, living with Yalani and aphasia. So, to me, this, message around lifestyle is just critical. And I mean, it's evidenced through the, lack of health in our country.
Yeah. So, Yalani, did your diet change when you moved in with him?
Oh, yes. Definitely. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I just thought I'd ask.
And I will say, Marcia, the good thing is Yalani eats anything.
Okay.
And so, I actually like to cook, and so I will try different things. But we eat really well. And as I said, the impact on his blood pressure and his blood sugar is also, his A1C is right where it should be.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, but yeah, it just, and one other thing I'll share real quickly, Marcia, another thing that happened for me personally, and I just told Yalani this a couple of days ago, is that my father had numerous medical issues, and it started with prostate cancer. But my father's life ended at 75, and it was a Wednesday, and he had a nosebleed that wouldn't stop. And so he went to the doctor, and the doctor immediately sent him to the hospital where he had a stroke. And he never came out of it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. And so, and a lot of that had to do with, he was on painkillers and a lot of medication for 10 years.
Right.
And so that the impact of that, it just, yeah.
Makes you wonder.
Oh, I can, yeah. Yeah, which is why all of this is so important.
Yeah. So the last time we talked, you told me about a website. Would you like to?
Oh, was that nutritionfacts.org? Yeah, nutritionfacts.org is I treat it as a go-to website. Dr. Michael Greger started the website, and he did it as a result of his grandmother, who had been diagnosed with cancer and was given a year to live.
Mm-hmm.
And she actually came across Dr. Dean Ornish. And as a result of following Dr. Dean Ornish's protocol, which is a whole food plant-based diet, she lived another 20 years. And so Dr. Greger started this website in honor of her, but his goal is to help educate people around nutrition from a science standpoint. And so and the other thing, he's got a dry sense of humor, and at the same time, his video clips are about 5 minutes long, and so they're digestible, and really, I found to be a very, a good resource.
Yeah. So I looked at the site, and I am blown away by how much it has.
I will say along the resource line that greenfair.com, we also have some resources on that site as well. We actually did a 28-day study back in 2020 for African Americans with diabetes.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a summary of that study, interviews with the people who went through that on the website. But what's really interesting, Marcia, is the reality of it is that whether it's stroke, diabetes, heart disease, autoimmune, arthritis, all of it can be vastly improved with a whole food plant-based diet, and then paying attention to your salt, oil, and sugar.
Yep. Agreed. That's exactly what I learned as well.
Really?
So I am allergic to or sensitive to 50 things.
Okay.
And the doctor, I said, well, what am I supposed to buy? And he said, you can buy everything that's not on this list. So I have been through a whole lot of books in the last 8 or 9 years, and I've learned a lot about nutrition as well. And I think that the plant-based diet without sugar, salt, or oil is the best.
Yep.
Okay, so if there were one question that I should have asked you but didn't, what would it be, and what's your answer?
I think the one question is, out of all of this, what is the single most important thing for people, whether it's stroke related or them going through something?
Mm-hmm.
And the answer to that question ends up being your mindset. Because whether, like with Yalani, I give him a lot of credit for his mindset in wanting to continue every day to get better and to do those things that he needs to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say the same thing for anybody that's dealing with, being overweight, being addicted to something, it comes down to mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Because if that isn't right, then all the other stuff doesn't work.
Right.
And so that to me is the single thing. And it's funny because each one of us is an individual, and how we get to that right mindset is different for all of us. There's certain tools and things. There are a lot of tools out there. And so I think that one of the things is to try the different tools and find the ones that work for you.
Makes perfect sense to me. Okay, so how do people get in touch with you?
So I'm happy to happy if people can email me. My email address is johnfnet@gmail.com.
Okay.
That's probably the easiest way. The other thing I would say is if they wanted to text me, that's yeah, email can be a little dicey at times, but if they wanted to text me, they could do that as well.
Okay.
And my number is 571-643-2436.
Okay. So you've given us a lot to think about, and I would like to thank you both, Yalani and John, for taking the time to share with me today.
Marcia, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi there. The National Aphasia Association's website told me that if I didn't get over my aphasia by the 3-month point, complete recovery was unlikely. I didn't like hearing that message. So I looked around me for something different, and I found something that worked for me. If you're interested in knowing more, please email me at Marcia, that's MARCIA, @strokeforward.com. I would love to hear your story.